Hello, this is Mandy from the future. I'm currently sitting down to edit the video that you are about to watch right now. Now, I had originally filmed a different intro for this video where it was a day in the life video, and throughout the day I was slowly going to answer questions about being self-employed and looking back on how things have changed since I've been self-employed for a year now. And the video got very long. I'm only halfway through editing the video and it's already 30 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split it into two different parts. The part you are watching right now is part one. I'm going to be talking how it felt to be laid off and the backstory of how I got laid off and why I felt the way I felt. I'll also be talking about the hardest parts of being self-employed and how long it took me to make the same amount of money in my business as I did as my previous job. Now, part two of this video will be posted later this week, so make sure you subscribe and hit that bell notification icon so you can see it when it uploads. In part two, we will be seeing the second half of my day, basically everything that happened after I ate lunch. And in the second half of my day, we're going to be talking about how much money I make on a regular basis from my business, how my business is now versus when I was first laid off and my business wasn't set up as a full-time gig. I'll also be talking about the best parts of being self-employed, and lastly, I'll be talking about my career goals. So make sure you stay tuned for part two, and please enjoy part one, which is right now.
I know it's nothing new, but it's so good to see you. Do this every day, and I'm still so amazed by you. So hold me tight through the night. It's just us two.
Working on these stickers, and then there's also a few more stickers I have to cut out and finish up, which I was supposed to do over the weekend. I just ran out of time. But let's talk about being laid off. So I was laid off right before everything in 2020 happened. I just realized this sound might sound obnoxious, but I will talk over this obnoxious sound. So the reason why I was so upset about being laid off was because before I'd worked at that job, and I worked in marketing and graphic design for a apartment company. Before I worked for that company, I worked for a hospital in marketing. Now, that hospital I had been working at for approaching 3 years. For a year and a half, I had been an intern there, and then right out of graduating college, I had been lined up to work there full-time as a full big girl job position. And I got very lucky straight out of college because I had done well with my internship. So I had this job that paid very well and overall was a really great job, but there were a few caveats to it. There was just reasons that I wanted to leave. Plus, no matter what job I worked in, I seemed to be unhappy. And now I know it's because no matter what job I took, I wasn't going to be happy because it wasn't what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do was to work for myself. So no matter what position it was, I would have been unhappy at the end of the day. But because of all that, I started job searching, and I found a job Now, this job was for the apartment company writing up blog posts, and I actually got the job, and then I turned down the job because it wasn't going to be enough hours. It was only a part-time position. A few months later, they called me up and asked if I would be interested in doing the blog content job as well as the graphic design job. They basically made up a position so they could hire me on full-time to fulfill their needs. Now, I have a theory that they hired me knowing they would eventually lay me off, because eventually I ran out of stuff to do. So it really wasn't a surprise when one day my boss walked into my office to inform me that I was being laid off due to budget cuts. Now, when I was laid off, I was not thrilled. I maintained my composure until my boss left my office. And then after he left the office, I waited a few seconds. And then when I knew he was out of sight, I left the office, I went to my car, and I called my husband, and I cried. And that's basically how that went. So that is what it feels like to be laid off when you know that you left a perfectly good job for a different position, thinking that it would make you feel fulfilled and happy, and it didn't, and then it doesn't matter anyways because they laid you off. And the best part was when they laid me off, I was going to be working a half day that day because I was leaving to go to Canada to visit a friend. And my boss didn't even remember that because he was like, you can work the rest of the week and half of next week so you can finish the projects that you're working on. To which I said, well, I'm leaving for Canada today. And then he was worried because he thought I wouldn't be able to finish all my work on time. So yeah, he had no clue that I was leaving for Canada that day, or he had forgotten, I should say. So I didn't even get to go home to talk to my husband in person about what had happened, and he wanted to talk about it over the phone, and I kind of just was like, no, I don't want to talk about it. I just want to enjoy my little vacation that had been ruined. I think it was an 8-hour drive to get to Canada, and I wanted to cry the whole time, and I didn't want to think about what decisions would be made, because at that time I didn't know if I would be working for myself. I kind of assumed my husband would want me to go out and get a job because we need money, and I wasn't, my business wasn't set up yet to be a actual revenue, a steady stream of revenue. So I didn't want him to tell me over the phone when I was about to go on vacation that I couldn't work for myself. So I basically ignored the problem until the weekend was over, and when I came home and he told me that I could work for myself and that we'd figure it out and that this is what I'm supposed to do. So yeah, I spent my entire weekend in Canada thinking that I would have to go apply to jobs and figure out how to balance my book stuff with a new job, because just getting a new job is just a nightmare. So yeah, for people who are wondering what was it like to be laid off, it wasn't a great feeling, and because it was before everything in 2020 happened, there weren't fancy benefits for being laid off. I didn't even qualify for unemployment because I was going to be self-employed, and when you're self-employed, you can't apply for unemployment depending on the state. It's very complicated. I still am not sure if I did that correctly. I feel like maybe if I had done some digging, I possibly could have qualified for unemployment, but the whole process and all of that, especially when everything with the pandemic hit, got very, very confusing very, very fast, and I just had a hard time really processing everything and trying to figure out how to make ends meet when all of this was going on. And with that, the Instagram stickers are officially restocked.
You know I'm here to stay every single day. Yeah. So hold me tight through the night. It's just just us two, me and you. Oh, 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 I can't believe you love me. Oh, 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 I just feel so lucky. Oh, 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 still can't believe you love me. Falling into your
Alright, it's 11 o'clock and I'm starting to fall behind. So let me just jump into this next Q&A session. So it's important to know that before I got laid off, I literally had no clue how I was going to continue with my business. To give you guys a little perspective of what things were going on at that time, I was working 40 hours a week while also working on my book. At the time, the book I was working on, I believe, was Sick and Twisted. And I also had a YouTube channel. I was working with 2 or 4 cover design clients a month. I honestly can't remember. I believe I was working with 4 cover design clients a month at a time. And then I also was about to launch the book launch planner. Now, I had big plans for the book launch planner. The book launch planner was going to be the thing that allowed me to quit my job, because I had plans. I had plans to eventually go first part-time with my job and then quit my job. So an important thing is that when I worked at my first job, my first big girl job, I should say, when I worked at the hospital, the thing with that job was that I could never go part-time. They needed more help. They were hiring on more people. So it would be basically impossible for me to go part-time with that old job. And I took the new job working for this apartment company because there was the possibility of going part-time, because the job was originally a part-time job. So I wanted to eventually, when I got comfortable, switch to part-time and then continue to grow my business again, and then eventually quit the job entirely and work for myself. Now, with that said, I was slowly trying to transition into that phase. I was doing book signings once a month. I was working my little katushki off to grow my YouTube channel, to work with cover design clients, because realistically that was the only thing at the time that gave me a steady income in my business. And then the book launch planner, I wanted to sell the planner, and then I had plans to eventually do stickers, and obviously that's something that I'm doing right now. But what scared me about the book launch planner was that I wanted to be able to fulfill orders every day, and my big fear was, oh my god, what if I just, that's an everyday thing. How am I supposed to be able to do that every single day while working this full-time job? And it terrified the heck out of me. And it got to the point that I was just working. I'd go to work, and I'd come home, and I'd work on my own stuff. And then on the weekends, I was doing book signings, and I couldn't even multitask at book signings. It's not like I could kind of sometimes work on my books during the book signings, but if it's a good book signing, there's no free time. If it's a good book signing, you're talking to people 24/7. You're trying to get people to come to your booth and buy your books. And I would come home from those book signings, and I would just cry. I would cry because I would be exhausted, or I would cry because the signing didn't go well, and I'd cry because I wasted my weekend working, and now I was about to go in on Monday to a job that I hated, and I was just so unhappy. And I didn't know how, I knew what I wanted, but I wasn't sure how to get there. So I was terrified, and I was moving forward with the book launch planner, having no clue whatsoever how I was actually going to manage it while working a full-time job, because I couldn't just quit my job, and I wasn't ready to go part-time with my job. So there was going to be this awful few months phase where I would just have to juggle everything and I didn't know how to figure it out. And then that, like right as that month of awfulness phase was about to happen, it was when I was laid off. So it was one of those like blessing in disguise things where I was about to put way too much on my plate. So the universe said, let me fix this for you and take away your job. So a lot of people wonder, like, how was the transition from working full-time and juggling everything to now you have all this time? Because a lot of people assume like, oh, with all this time it must be so much easier. But it was like, first of all, I spent the first month just kind of sad, confused, trying to process everything. I didn't know what I was doing. The first month was a lot of watching Netflix, a lot of feeling uninspired, a lot of just sitting down and crunching numbers and figuring out how I would be able to make enough money to replace my previous income. Because full disclosure, because it really doesn't matter anymore. I think at my previous job, I was making like $26 an hour. So I guess depending on where you live, especially in the United States, will really depend on like how impressive that sounds. But like for someone who just graduated college, not bad at all. So it was going to be very, very hard to take a business that I barely have up and running and be able to replace my previous income with the business income. So the first step of what I did was I sat down and tried to figure out how I would be able to replace that income, because I knew it wasn't going to come from book sales, because I make like between $1 and $3 per book I sell. And in order to replace that type of income would just be an insane amount of work. Now, my goal was with the business to make between $4,000 and $5,000 a month. Just that was my goal. That would replace my old income, and especially if I was in the $5,000 a month range, would be more than what I made at my previous job. So that's always been like the magic number, $5,000 a month. And eventually I do want to make more than that, because I'm the type of person who likes to go on vacation a lot, and to go on vacations you need money to spend. So anywho, so I sat down and said to myself, how many clients would I need to take every month? How many copies of the book launch planner do I need to sell every month? How much revenue do I need to make off of YouTube a month? How many books do I need to sell a month? That's just what I did. At the end of the day, I decided my goal was to take 6 cover design clients every month and then sell 30 planners, and I can't remember the exact number of books that I told myself I would have to sell. And then I also don't remember the exact number for how much revenue I wanted to make off of YouTube. I know the numbers for like this year, but last year was different. Last year was like baby steps. But the big thing was to sell 30 planners, and plus that was only 1 planner a day. That felt like a realistic goal. And then 6 cover design clients, which like felt overwhelming, because when I say I have 6 cover design clients a month, that's 6 new cover design clients. So how it works is I take on 6 new clients every month, but at the same time I'm still working with previous month's clients, revising their covers, making changes, designing the wraps for their books. And sometimes when they're formatting clients, my formatting clients are like, hey, I found a few more typos in my book. Can you update the interior to fix the typos? And then, so at a time, sometimes like in 1 week, I can work with 10 different clients. And I actually have a dedicated notebook, and every day when I sit down to check my emails after lunch, because emails stress me out, so I don't answer them before lunch, and I sit down with my notebook, and as I open up emails, I write down, this client needs this updated, this client needs that updated, this client needs that updated. And if it's a quick fix, I will do it right away. If it's not a quick fix, I will just let the client know. I will get the revision to you later this week. And that's how I operate. So I'm not sure if it's the cleanest process, but it is a process that works for me. I've been babbling a lot, and I actually do have a cover design client whose cover I need to work on. Okay, I'm pretty sure I spent the past, I don't know, almost 2 hours designing a cover only to decide that I don't like it and then I'm gonna restart from scratch. And that's what it's like to be a cover designer sometimes. So that was a waste of time. So let's go back to topic questions. We've got UA who wants to join in. So a lot of you asked, like, what's the hardest part about being self-employed? And besides figuring out stuff like taxes on your own, I would probably say the hardest part is staying motivated, because times like today where I spend 2 hours working on something only to decide to hate it, it can feel extremely unmotivating. And there's also just the matter of, like, stuff happens in your personal life and it makes it that much harder to do your job. Now, if I'm having an off day at, like, my old job, it doesn't matter if I'm not productive on a certain day, because I get paid the same no matter how productive I am, because I'm employed by someone else. However, when you're self-employed, you only get paid as productive as you are, so it can just be extremely discouraging when you're just having a bad week, a bad month, and you don't want to work, you don't want to be productive, but you also know that if you aren't going to get paid. And it's like, it feels like you're not allowed to have off days. And you want to have off days, and you want to have days where you just don't have to be so hard on yourself all the time. 2020 was not a good year to start your own business, and that's when I was kind of forced to go full bore with mine. Granted, the business had already been started, the ball was already rolling, but it was an extremely hard year for so many reasons outside of what happened with 2020 for everyone else. Oh my goodness, my puppy's crying because she wants to go out and she wants to play and she can hear me talking. The fact of the matter is that in April, I was able to make as much money working from home as that I did when I was employed by someone else. And it literally took me, so I was laid off in March. I had a pity party for myself for a month, and then the next month I made $4,837.08 in 1 month. I made that. And I was celebrating, and I was making as much as I did at my old job, and it felt really good. But then the month after that, all hell broke loose. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel safe for a very real and logical reason. And it took me a long time to kind of get over that. Me and my husband, we installed a security system for our house. We got a dog for so many reasons. And this may sound stupid, but it was also just for extra security. So if someone ever tried to break into our house, that the dog would bark and be alerted. Some stuff had happened in my personal life and in my town as a whole that really shook our community and made us very scared and very paranoid. And it basically, during that time, I didn't want to post on social media. I didn't want to work. I was doing the bare minimum. I was getting work done for my clients, but I wasn't doing anything outside of that. So I had gone from April, which was an amazing month where I made so much money, and then the next month, I disappeared. And my paycheck reacted accordingly. And ever since then, it's really just been really hard to get back on my feet and to be productive again and make the type of money I did back in April, because frankly, if I'm being completely honest, I haven't made as much as I did at my old job since April. And for me, it's just a matter of learning how to balance work and figuring out how much I can handle and handling it all while still learning to take days off and have days where I don't have to be super, super productive. So I guess that's what I'm saying. The hardest part is that it feels sometimes like you're not allowed to have breaks and you're not allowed to have bad days, because when you do have bad days, it makes it that much harder to get back up again. There was also a huge adjustment to getting used to being home all the time and the expectations for myself and for my husband in terms of now that I'm home all the time, like whose job it is to maintain the house. And just from like between me and Phil, there was just this weird new dynamic we had to figure out where I'm home all the time, but still understanding that while I'm home, I'm working, and while Phil's working, that I can't expect for him to be ready to greet me with lots of joy when he gets home, because he comes home from work exhausted, but I've been home all day, so I get kind of antsy by the end of the day. I want to go do stuff. I want to celebrate the workday being done, whereas he's tired and he has a commute that he has to drive through. He has other people he has to deal with, and there's things that he deals with that I no longer have to deal with, and there are things that I deal with that Phil will never really understand. So there's this new line of communication that you have to have between your partner to really figure out how to discover this new dynamic of one person's home all the time. And we're still figuring that out. Like, for example, I like to go out, have fun, go do stuff, and that becomes even worse now that I'm home all the time because this is all I ever see. Whereas Phil, he can't wait to get home and spend the entire weekend at home. But I've already spent the entire week at home, so on the weekends, I want to go out. So it's just figuring out a balance where both people are happy. So it's almost 1 o'clock now. I need to go eat lunch. I normally stop for lunch at noon, but I was trying to finish up this cover, and obviously the cover didn't go as well as I thought it would. So, yeah.